Good day, people. Again and again and again, I am coming with you with some amazing people who have experienced eczema, TSW, cirrhosis, acne, even though it's not acne month. I know that, but it's about eczema awareness.
Yeah.
So today I have a really lovely lady with us. She goes by the name Chi, but that's not her full name. I'll let her explain her full, say her name in full. But it's actually an honor for us to have her with us today to speak about her experiences. And for those of you who are in the UK, she's on the other side of the pond. She's in the US, in Miami in particular. So, Chi, are you there?
I am here. Thank you for
Hello.
having me.
No problem. Thank you. Thank you for honoring to be on this podcast with us. This is a big deal for us. It's really important for us to have these conversations. But Chi, please, for the audience, please introduce yourself.
Well, thank you so much for that beautiful introduction. My name is I go by Chi because it's definitely easier for me in my life. My full name is Chiquana, and I'm originally from North Carolina in the United States, but I do live in Miami, and I have been advocating for my skin journey ever since 2019. I was born with eczema, severe eczema, and I used medication up until I was 29, and
Oh,
that was
wow.
2019. And then there was so much going on. I just thought to myself, like, my skin seems like it's getting worse, and it
Yeah.
doesn't seem like this is healthy. Like, I've been on this medication for my entire life,
Yeah.
and it doesn't seem like I should be on it for this long. So I just
Yeah.
stopped using my medication, just like this little voice inside of me. And I had no clue that topical steroid withdrawal existed. I had a totally different life. I was in a totally different career path. I was actually living in Bangkok. I was a
Oh,
professional
wow.
dancer.
Oh.
Yeah, I was touring and traveling. And then when I got back to the States, I went in full TSW flare. And
Wow.
at the top of the pandemic, my life changed. Welcome to your 30s.
That was your introduction to your 30s, yes.
That was my introduction to my 30s. And here we are.
Oh wow. Oh wow. You've said so many things for us to unpack. So I want us to like really get into it. Chi, if you don't mind me asking, what is your heritage? Because research has shown that eczema seems to be more prevalent in African Americans or those of Black heritage. So if you don't mind me
Yes.
asking, for just in case for anyone who's not too sure, what is your actual heritage?
I am Black, African American, and Native American, and
Oh,
probably a lot of other things. Um,
probably some Irish in there and
yes, a lot of other things in there. But yeah, I grew up in North Carolina, which is much more of a I grew up in a small town, predominantly Black African American family
okay.
culture.
Okay, and and I know a lot of people are probably are looking at you right now saying, where is her eczema? I can't see any
I
eczema.
know. You caught me on a good day.
That's
Uh,
important to say. Okay, so let's go back. So you were born, you were born in North Carolina, you said,
yes,
and you were diagnosed with eczema at a very young age, or like at what
yes.
age were you? Do you know?
I don't necessarily remember like an age, but like as long as I can remember being alive, I've had
Mm,
eczema. So
okay,
there's not a day that I don't know what it's like to live without eczema. I wasn't diagnosed later on in life. I wasn't a
okay.
teenager, an adult. Like, I was probably diagnosed anywhere between 6 to 8 months. And it was just very severe my entire childhood.
Okay, and do you know, or did your parents know what the triggers to your eczema is? Because there are obviously we
No.
know that there are so many different triggers to it.
Yeah, well, it was not known at
Oh
all. And I think
wow.
thinking back and looking back and knowing what I know now and becoming my own advocate and just learning the language for myself, I think that as a child, I was in a lot of allergy prone, toxic environments
Yeah.
for myself, especially the food that we were eating, the carpet, just like going to my grandmother's house, I would just break out in a flare sitting on the floor, and everyone's like, "What's wrong with you?" And now looking back, I'm like, "It was my grandma's carpet."
I'm so sorry to say that, but coming from like a cultural background as well, like growing up, we Africans eat peanuts like no man's business. And every time we would go to family parties, the kids are the ones that carry peanuts around and serve and popcorn and stuff like that. And every time we used to go to family parties, my family would say that I turn into Incredible Hulk because literally my eyes would just like burst out. Yeah, like I'm scratching, my nose is running. And every single time my mum used to get so angry with me, like, what's wrong with you? Every
Right,
time we go to a party,
right.
you make yourself disgusting.
That's so true. It's so true. I
Only-
used to feel so bad. I used to have to leave family functions all the time. If I went over a friend's house and there was something that irritated me, I would have to get picked up early. I just was a very sensitive girl.
And how did that impact you growing up as a girl, like you're saying, and knowing that a lot of people didn't have it? How did that impact you emotionally, psychologically?
I think that I'm realizing more so now than ever how it impacted my characteristics. But as a child, I feel like I just wanted to have fun, and I just wanted to play with everyone, and I wanted to be outside, and I wanted to go on field trips, and I wanted to go to the pool, and I wanted to play in the woods, and I couldn't do any of that. I
Yeah.
distinctly remember sitting, I was having a really bad flare. I was probably like 8 or 9, and I was sitting on the end of my bed, and I told my sister, like, I just wish I lived in a bubble. Like, if
Oh,
I just lived in a bubble so I wouldn't be irritated to everything and I could enjoy life. It really affected my quality of life as a child.
yeah.
And I think that internally I felt like I was a burden, and I became very shy and soft spoken because of that, because of, I mean, we were joking about it earlier, but now in my conscious mind, I look back and I'm like, getting picked up, getting called from school every day. I failed grades second through third because I couldn't sit still in class. I was so like irritated with my skin.
Wow.
I could not focus for 3 years. So I went to summer school every year up until middle school to pass my grades. I was like in and out of the hospitals. My mom had to like get off of work all the time. Like I just felt like a burden
Oh,
to the
wow.
family. And I feel like in turn now I can see how that's impacted my characteristics and like my space that I hold in the world. And I'm trying
Sure.
to rework some of that.
Wow, wow, that's heavy, and that's very real
Yeah.
as well. That's the realities of it all. I think people just think that, oh, it's just a rash, or it's just oh, just stop scratching and things like that. And it's like, no, this thing, you don't know what it feels like to feel uncomfortable in your
In
own
your skin.
skin. Like you can't escape from that, and you're
Yeah.
constantly, and then you know that, like I said, for us culturally, when things don't look normal, whatever that is,
Yeah.
it's like, oh, what is that? And
What is
it's
that?
really
Yeah.
frowned upon. Yeah. So you feel the impact of that. But like you said, you just want to be a child. You just want to do you. But what I'm a
Yeah.
bit concerned about from the things that you said so far is that were your doctors not able to, at a very young age, identify all of your triggers? Did they not even think about doing an allergy test for you? I mean, what was the
You know,
medical
that's
care like for
that's
you?
such a good question. I did grow up on we call it Medicaid here. It's government state assistance, and so
Sure,
I don't think that I had the best quality of care.
sure.
And my mom just, did not know much. She didn't
Of
know what
course.
to do, how to do, and I advocate a lot the importance of being your own advocate and
Sure.
speaking up in the doctor's office, because from what I can remember, it was my mom and I going to the doctor's office and just basically expecting them to take this away. Like,
Sure.
please, whatever it is,
Exactly.
whatever you recommend, whatever you need to do, please do it. Give us help, please, please, please. And not us taking some accountability and thinking about some of those things in the house, the environmental factors, the triggers. Maybe she can't eat this, maybe she can't do this. That was never the conversation. So
Yeah.
I'm a 100% advocate for you knowing the language, writing down questions prior to your derm appointment, just making sure that you are an active in that conversation as well, because it's two ways. I just don't think my mom had enough knowledge. I don't
Of
think she had enough
course.
resources.
Of course. And I think that's the overwhelming part, even if I reflect on my mum's experience, because they heavily rely on doctors. You're
Yes.
taught that the doctors have got the answers. So if the doctors don't have the answers, then you're overwhelmed, right?
Oh, yes. Like, I don't know what else to do with her. You guys fix it.
Yeah, exactly. You guys, so
know?
your mum, I can appreciate your mum wouldn't have even understood the environmental things that, and I think even till now, to be honest with you, I think I still pick up on little things that that doesn't really sit well with me. And do you understand? Because I remember when I was younger, one of my allergies was dairy. I had a real big episode when I was a baby when I drank milk and I was rushed
Mhm.
to like emergency and everything. But then as I got older, I was able to start taking dairy again. But I've realized now that as I'm getting older, like older,
Yeah.
it's becoming a slight issue again. I'm seeing that if I have cheese, for example, I start getting like a rash on my face, and I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
So I think some, like you said, being your own advocate and understanding now in at this stage that, oh,
It
actually,
is.
there's some things that do and don't work, and
Yeah.
it's never one way. For example, I remember with my peanut allergy, like I said, just smelling it alone triggered my for me to have a flare up. But then
Right.
I got to a period in my life, I think it was in my late 20s, early 30s, that even if I was to walk down the aisle in a shopping center and there'll be peanuts in the aisle in containers, it was triggering a flare up. So it really does depend on at different stages of your life where you're at, you're
Yeah.
these kind of
Yeah.
things. So when you went into you went into school, you did high school and everything. Did you have full blown eczema, or was the steroids actually working to calm it down?
Yeah, so I would say into my adolescence and teenage years, I was fine. I was cool sailing on the medicine. I forgot I even had a skin condition.
Let me
I
ask you, did
did
you have acne?
no,
Ah,
I've never
interesting.
had acne.
I,
No. Um, I've just always had severe eczema. And
yeah.
yeah, by the time I was in my teenage years, I was like on the medicine. I would not go anywhere without my medicine. If
Wow.
I didn't have that tube, I would freak out.
Were you able to swim? Because that's something else that I found that was triggering to my
I
skin.
was never able to swim, even on the medicine. It would always, always it would always trigger me.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So then you said that it got to your 30s, which would became your turning. No, sorry, was it your 30s that was your turning point?
So my whole 20s, I was traveling, dancing, working, still using the medication. And then 2019, I was in Bangkok and I thought to myself, cost of living is way, cheaper and affordable here. I was there on a contract for 6 months. So I was just like, why don't I try to do some natural remedies, pay for it myself because, on a dancer's salary, there's no way I could pay for that type of medical attention in the US. So
Sure. So this is
I
in
took,
Bangkok.
this is in Bangkok. I
Sure.
took full advantage of, just getting care in that country. And I stopped the steroids and I went into steroid withdrawal. But I had no clue that that's what was going on. I just thought, oh my God, it's going crazy,
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
wow, it's getting really bad. No problem. I'll just like fight my way through it. And by the time that was like the end of my contract, by the time I landed, I had like a welcoming back party here in Miami. And then the next day, I was like, my skin like transformed overnight. I
Oh,
was discolored,
wow.
it was open, it was like botchy. My skin was so soft that it was like rubbing off, you know, like it was crazy. It happened overnight.
So let me understand this. So is this because you said that you came off of the steroids when you're in Japan? I'm sorry, Bangkok,
In
sorry. When
Bangkok,
you were in
yes.
Bangkok. So whilst you're in Bangkok and you were doing the natural remedies, was your skin okay? Was it just fine, or what was the situation?
So my skin wasn't getting better, and I was
Hmm.
using the medicine in Bangkok, but it just wasn't getting better. It was almost as if it was getting worse, and it was a different feeling. And so I just remember thinking to myself, I don't know what's going on. Maybe it's because I'm in a different country. You know, my schedule's crazy, my rehearsal's crazy. I don't know. Like I was just thinking, this is weird. Like
Yeah.
this does not feel like my regular eczema. The patches were getting thicker.
Oh,
It was just kind of like it felt like a fungus growing, or
okay.
you know, like something growing
Yeah.
on top of my skin, and
Yeah.
it just felt a little different than an eczema flare. But I didn't know what to call it. I just thought, okay, my eczema is really bad. I was working with an herbalist, and this is like about a month, like about 3 weeks.
Yeah.
um that I had stopped using it. And by the third week is when I arrived back to the US. And that's when it just, I mean, probably with the flight, with the airplane, with the time change, and then I got back and I was
You were tight,
drinking a
yeah.
lot. So the
You were like,
TSW just,
your body was just like, boom, what is going?
yeah, yeah. And then, you know, my life changed, and going through TSW taught me more about eczema than I've ever known
Okay.
in my life, and probably changed my life for the better, because if not, I probably wouldn't, and I wouldn't be here, and I wouldn't know how to manage or how to, you know, make a better quality life for
Yeah.
myself while
Yeah.
living with eczema, because I'm going to have it for the rest of my life, you know.
Sure, sure.
But like you said, like maintaining the triggers, I feel like is a huge conversation. And I don't know if we talk about it enough.
Yeah. Yeah. No, no, I definitely agree with you. Even for me, I think part of my healing was when I went to Ghana. I spent 14 years in Ghana, and the humidity alone, you could feel like it entering into your skin and just doing something different. So then I also started realizing that the climates that we're
The
in
climate.
really has a big effect on our skin as well. And I say this in the most sincerest way, that Black people, our skin is not meant for cold environments, right?
Hmm.
We naturally, many Black people have got a skin profile of dry and sensitive. So once it's in an environment where it's too cold, or even if it's cold and you keep putting the heater on, all of those things are actually damaging and irritating our skin's barrier. So that's what
Even
then makes us more susceptible to, getting flare-ups and things like that. But I wanted to just go back a little bit when you had mentioned that you were traveling for work and things like that. So did you have any signs of eczema? I mean, I didn't ask you, but did you have the eczema in your most common places, which is behind the legs
Yes,
and
yeah. I had the reoccurring you know, in the bends of the elbows and the backs of the knees.
Mhm.
My neck would get highly irritable. Um,
Oh, sorry.
sorry, no. And so yeah, but my most troublesome are the
Yeah.
elbows and the knees.
Okay, so you get back to the US, you have a full-blown breakout. At this point, you're still not on the steroids either. So then what was your, because I think naturally my thoughts would be, oh my gosh, let me get the cream and start putting it back on.
Yeah,
What
yeah.
was your next actions afterwards when you had the full breakout?
You know, it never occurred to me to go to see a derm or go to the doctor's office. I feel like because I have a history of dancing, I'm really closely connected to my intuition,
Sure.
and I just had a feeling that something more was going on.
Okay.
I can't explain it. I it did not feel like eczema. It did not,
Okay.
it felt very different. And I've
Okay.
lived with eczema my entire life. So it was
Yeah.
just, it was a weird feeling. But I remember I was following Rael. She is an eczema advocate here in the States. And I had briefly I hadn't really taken into account what she was posting, but I had like briefly like saw it and breezed over it, and I saw that she had eczema. She was talking about something else, but because it didn't really pertain to me, I didn't really
Sure.
go into it.
Sure.
And then I just thought like, oh, who's that girl that I was following? And she was talking about her eczema. I went onto her account, and then she was talking about TSW, and then I went to itsan.org website, and then I started reading on topical steroid withdrawal. And then I remember distinctly seeing pictures. It was the pictures where I was able to self-diagnose myself from the
Uh-huh.
pictures, because I
Uh-huh.
looked at the pictures, and then I looked at my skin. At the time I had elephant skin, I had patches, everything was really wacky tacky, and
Yeah.
I was able to compare, and it was really comparable. It was like textbook
Oh,
to some of
wow.
the pictures that Itsan had on the website. So that's how I found out what I was going through. And I immediately messaged her. And then I started an Instagram page to just document my healing, because I was like, what is going on? And if I'm
Yeah.
going through this, I'm not going to go through this alone.
Sure.
That was my number one like mindset. I'm not doing this by myself.
Yeah. Love that.
um yeah, and then just open this world of healing and
So, so,
education.
so what was the healing process for you once you realized that it was TSW?
Well, at first it was much more of a shock. I think for the first 2 years I was because I felt like I was really at the peak of my career, and I had worked hard to kind of get to where I was going. I had to make a really hard decision, and that was at the time to stop dancing, because there was just no way I could live that strenuous schedule life, um, rehearsing and performing. I just couldn't do that without medicine.
Sure.
And I just knew that I did not want to be dependent on a medication for the rest of my life.
Hmm.
So I made a decision to cancel my next upcoming contract, and
That
just
must have
focus
been
on
tough.
healing. It was really tough. It was really tough. And that's why I feel like the first 2 years of my TSW journey, I was more so like in shock.
Yeah.
Like, just kind of
Yeah.
like, it's blurry. I just really feel like I was in shock. That's a lot to take in.
Sure.
It's a harsh reality to realize. And it's a lot of hard decisions to make.
Sure.
And it's a total mind shift, and that takes a while, because now you're peeling back layers, and it's way more than just your skin.
Yeah.
Then we get into some tough, deep conversations. And so this is my 5th year, and I feel much better, but it has been 5 long, hard, transformational years.
Wow. So what were you using? So did you continue using the medication that you had got from Bangkok, or what was you using?
I was during my TSW journey,
Yeah, so
or
once you had hit the US, and then the next day you had a breakout, and you said that you identified that it just wasn't
yeah.
eczema. What was you
Yeah,
using at that point in time?
I didn't really use any topicals on my skin. I just did a lot of dead sea salt baths. And I did a lot of CBD tincture. Like
Oh, okay.
I really wanted to reduce my like inflammation. And so
Hmm.
I was doing a lot of like anti-inflammatory foods and
Hmm.
tinctures, and um I just rested. I couldn't really walk or do anything for a year of it.
What ointment
So
was you using on your skin?
I was on triamcinolone,
Okay.
and
Is that's not a steroid? What kind of medication is that, or cream?
Yeah, that's a steroid ointment. It's the
Oh,
clear.
okay.
It's clear.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I know the one that you're talking about.
Yeah.
So how long did you have to, okay, sorry, I think I'm a bit confused. So because you were going through TSW, but you went back on steroids again.
No, 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 no. So when my entire life I used triamcinolone. Like that's the
Yes.
medication that I use. And then when I
Hmm.
got back to the States, I didn't really use any topicals. Like I did CBD. Um, there was this brand that I really liked. I think it had shea butter in it.
Hmm.
I found it at Marshall's, and then it's like a smaller company made out of Ohio.
Hmm.
It's called Dirty Lamb. I started
Okay.
using that. It was natural, organic. Um, but I didn't really use a lot of like anything topical.
Yeah.
I did no moisture treatment for 9 months.
Okay.
So I just kind of withdrew from a lot. Like I just let myself dry out and I try to let the functions of my body and come back as natural as possible.
Awesome. So you mentioned it's been 5 years.
Yeah.
How has the journey been for you?
I think that it's been like peaks and valleys. I think that there's been years of depression. There's been years of isolation and just feeling lost, a loss of identity, a loss of self-worth, a loss of self-value, just because it's changed so much for me. And I think that I'm not sure if I was mentally prepared for that level of um, trauma that you go through.
Sure.
Um, now that my skin is better, I feel like the past like 4 years, I've only been able to focus on my skin. Every decision, everything I eat, everything I wear, everything I say, every decision I make was about my skin. And now I feel like I have clarity. Like
Hmm.
I feel like, wow, I can focus on my womanhood. I can focus on my personal life. I can focus on, my mental health. I can focus back on my career. Like I feel like I was just very tunnel vision
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
get my skin to a baseline.
Wow.
And it didn't come easy for me.
You're saying a lot because I can only imagine and like to dedicate 4 years solidly of your life at that age to dealing with this. I can imagine
Yeah.
it's just like, oh no, like life is happening and I'm having to deal with this kind
And
of
I'm
thing.
having
Like
to deal with this. And
that that
it's so funny because the other day is the first time I thought about it. Like my entire 30s started with TSW. My entire 30s
uh,
has been, living with this condition and just trying to become an advocate and fight systems and,
yeah.
like march on. And like, all right.
So let me ask you, how has it affected your relationship life?
Um, I don't feel like it's affected it in a negative way. I've been really blessed to have dated people that really understood and took in consideration, especially when I was in the thick of it. I was really blessed at that time with a partner who was able to be my full-time caretaker.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
so it hasn't really affected my personal relationships. I think for me, I feel like it's the intimacy part. I don't know, I don't know if there's studies or research or science out about it as of yet, but
Mhm.
definitely my libido is lower. I just don't really have the like I don't want to touch someone so much and
Yeah,
I don't want them to touch me so
yeah,
much. And so I don't know if this entire journey has played a part in that.
yeah. That's
But
interesting. That's
yeah,
really
that would be
interesting.
something to think about.
Okay, so it's been 5 years. What have you identified are your key triggers?
For me, stress. Stress is my biggest trigger, and I feel like, it's very true. It's extremely true. And when I'm not maintaining my stress is when my skin when I have flares, when it's dry, when it's uncomfortable, when it's irritable, and then it's hard for me to like maintain a balance. And then food for me, I feel like a lot of, and I know this is controversial. So like, but for me personally, in my own journey, food is a huge trigger. There's just certain things that I stray away from eating, like
Yeah.
dairy, eggs. I was vegan for 7 years, and then I started eating meat and dairy again. And then I realized in the middle of that, like, I don't think this is the best for my skin.
Exactly.
So I just recently this year stopped eating dairy.
Okay.
Um, and like tomatoes, I can't eat tomatoes.
Oh,
That's just like
wow.
something that irritates me in an instant are tomatoes.
Wow.
I can't eat
Interesting.
lentils. I know lentils are healthy and really good for some people, but lentils really irritate me. There's certain foods that I know that I just stray away from.
Yeah, yeah. Anything environmental? Are you allergic? Do you have hay fever or anything like that?
I haven't, not as of recent, dealt with a lot of hay fever. I live in Florida solely because of the weather. I will
Yeah,
say that.
I figured that. I was going to say, is the
I
Miami moved because
cannot,
of the,
yes,
yeah.
I cannot live in any cold climate. I refuse.
Not an option.
It's not for me. But I have friends, I have eczema friends who can't, like, when they came to Orlando for Eczema
Mhm.
Expo, and some of their skin were not reacting well to the humidity, the
Humidity.
water. It was so harsh. It was so, for me, I don't know if it's because I've been chasing the sun for a very long time in my life that
Yeah.
I've gotten my skin acquainted with this climate. But for me, this works. Cold does not work at all. But dust, mold, if I go to an older building and I'm
Mm-mm.
like sneezing like
Yeah,
crazy, and people
yeah.
think, it happened just the other day, and someone's like, "Are you okay? Like, why'd you come if you were sick?" And I'm like, I am not sick. I'm just like a walking indicator that there is mold and dust and God knows what else in here, and we should not be in here. I am not sick. I'm just
The
allergic to
environment
something.
is sick, and
The
I'm just letting you
environment
know.
is sick. I am allergic to something in here. So I'm very sensitive to a lot of, unseen environmental factors, triggers.
Yes, I feel you so much about that. When I was much younger, I couldn't do anywhere that had dust or anything. Like it would just make me cringe, and I'd literally start having hives or rashes coming up on my hands because it was like it would make me feel really uneasy. And dogs, cats, any of those things, it was like
Oh,
no.
yeah. Yeah. No way.
It will just like make me break out, and it's just, and like you said, you feel like you just want to be in a bubble because it's like everything you're interacting with seems to not agree with you. But the funniest thing is, like I said, when I went to Ghana, I moved to Ghana, started using the shea butter as well, so I'm guessing the humidity as well as the sun, sorry, the cream, as well as, like I said, me managing my triggers was really really helping me. But then now as I'm older, like I said, I find that when,
Mature,
yeah, there
mature.
you go. Now I'm mature. What was I going to say? I find that stress, yeah, I get stress reacted. So whenever I'm feeling stressed, I literally will see like random patches coming up on my body. The last time that I had a flare up was earlier on this year. I was in a very stressful situation with my businesses, and like on my feet, just on the arch of both of my feet, it started off like a little dot like this, and I was like, okay, I can manage that. But
Yeah.
then it kept growing and growing and growing, and it was like breaking out on other parts of my feet, and all you could see is like my foot became this big black
Oh my
patch, and
God,
like, I'm
same.
walking with,
Was it on the top of your foot?
yeah, yeah,
Oh my God, I
exactly.
had a flare. Oh my God, it was so bad there.
And to the point that it was starting to bleed, and everything else. And so I was like, okay, and I was treating it, and one thing I found really worked for me is that every time it was itching, I was applying the shea butter to it, because the shea butter was actually helping calm the itch down. And
Yeah.
so, and I always say to people that, when you've got eczema, you've got dry skin, don't just apply once in the morning and then that's it. If you have to
Hmm.
keep on reapplying to your skin because, it's getting very dry due to the environment, keep on
Yeah.
applying it, right? Because otherwise
Yeah.
that's breaks and cracks and stuff. So yeah, it got to a point that I was scratching, and so it was just bleeding, and it became scabby and everything else. And I was just like, I can't deal with this. Not on my feet as well, because I want to do a sexy dress. And when I do a sexy dress, I
Right.
want to do some sandals. And so people would ask me, "Oh, what's on your foot? What's on?"
What's on your foot?
I said, it's eczema. It is what it
Yeah.
is. Like, because one thing that people need to understand is that eczema doesn't discriminate, right? You could get
Right.
it at any point in your life. You may
In
not
your
have been
life.
born with it, but then, it can come up at any point in time. But I think something that was really interesting for me to learn, though, about you is that because you said you were dancing, you were traveling a lot, I would have thought, even though you were on steroid creams, I would have thought that would have been um, stressful to your body anyway, therefore causing it to have even a slight reaction? Or do you think because of the steroids, it was really just keeping it calm and like keeping it under control?
I think the steroids were really helpful in keeping it under control, but I also was like living my dream. And
Okay,
there was so much joy and expression and
okay.
movement that I think that a combination of all of that was very helpful at keeping my skin at bay.
Okay, excellent. And one thing that's really important, I'm not sure if you're wearing makeup, but I found that when I started to wear makeup, that became a whole new kettle of fish for me.
Yeah.
What
Yeah,
has your experience been?
I'm wearing makeup, but I haven't worn makeup. Like this year is the most that I've worn makeup in the past 5 years, just
Okay.
because it was impossible, especially around here. I
Yeah.
mean, it's still super dry around here, around my eyes. But
But did you find it easy to find a product that you could actually use on your skin, considering that you have eczema and it's sensitive skin?
well, the my skin on my face has always been the strongest.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, yeah.
Oh, wow,
I
wow,
would,
wow.
I would have flares around my eyes.
Hmm.
This has been the most problematic on my face. And then in the creases of my eyes, I still
Sure.
have cuts here and cuts at the bottom.
Oh, wow.
Um, but these relatively are easy to manage
Sure,
as
sure.
opposed to like my legs are my most problematic and my foot. And I think we probably had the same flare because I've
Mm,
seen a lot of other eczema girlies, especially Black girls, who have this flare. Like
yeah.
it's an identical flare on top of our foot. And I think it's so interesting.
It really is. It
And it's
is.
thick. It's thick
Yes,
patches.
yes,
Yes.
yes.
So that flare is like that. It's at bay now, but it's discolored. Like I was
Yeah.
scratching it so much that I like ripped my skin.
Yeah, exactly. And funny
Yeah.
enough, so I kept on using this year, and then I got rid of what was making me stressed out. I had to start saying no. I knew what it was about work that was stressing me out, and it was like, no, I need to do this for myself because my body is telling me this is not good for me. The same way
Right.
you could go into an environment and your body would be like, ding, 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 ding.
Yeah.
Your body
Yeah.
is telling me that this particular situation or this person or whatever is not good for you. Eject,
Yeah.
eject.
Yep. I always say, with eczema, like I have to wake up and be the most healthiest version of myself.
That's it. That's
you
it.
know? And
That's it.
sometimes I don't want to be. Sometimes I don't want to, and that's okay.
Girl, tell me why I was eating two pizza slices last night because I was
Like I can't I'm sorry. I'm not going to do it all the time. But, I'll deal with the consequences later, and that's fine.
it's terrible. Sometimes you're just like, Oh, okay, I'm a good girl, yes, but not today.
Yes.
Like not today. I'm
Yeah.
just tired. Let me just because it is a lot holding yourself up to that standard every
Yes.
single day.
Every single day. Like you know, just think about it. You know, to maintain your condition, you really do wake up, get enough sleep, drink enough water, eat the right things, have the right
Yeah,
amount of movement, have the right amount of like sunlight, journaling, meditating, keeping a calm nervous system. Like all these things are so important and it
yeah,
really are, they're very helpful, extremely
yeah,
helpful. But I'm a girl.
yeah. Period.
There's no way I can be like this every day. No way.
So, Chi, you know what? Earlier on this year, I did a whole like full body MOT, and the doctors were able to do an allergy test on me. I'm not sure if you've had an allergy test before, but I
I've
learned some,
never had an allergy test.
girl, I learned some
What did
interesting
you
things about myself.
learn?
First, so I've always known I'm allergic to the penicillin family. So anything amoxicillin or anything like that, I can't take. I learned that I'm allergic to metals, jewelry. And it's really interesting because whenever I wear necklaces, rings, bracelets, I feel like I'm suffocating. I've always felt like that all my life, only to realize that you're allergic to the metals. And I'm like,
But you didn't think, you didn't, you know,
I
it's just like,
didn't
oh,
think.
yeah,
Yeah. Also allergic to shellfish. I'm not even supposed to be eating.
same.
Girl, I've been eating shrimps like no man's business.
Oh, really?
I've been eating it and I didn't know. And it was like, yep, you're allergic to shrimps. Obviously allergic to peanuts and all types of nuts, sesame seeds and all of those
Yeah,
kind of things, allergic to that. And then I was also allergic to alcohol. That was really interesting
yeah.
as well. I have a wine cafe, so the idea of me being allergic to
Oh,
alcohol was quite hilarious. I was like, wow, all these years I've been drinking alcohol, and it's not a heavy drinker, but
no,
the doctor
yeah.
said to me, I'd advise you just to not do it at all.
Not do it at all.
If you can help it, then just not do it at all. And I was like, oh wow. And I think these tests are really important, and also dairy as well. But I think
Okay.
these tests are really important for us to take as well. Just in general, I think people should just take
In
tests
general, yes.
in general,
So I
right?
know there's different categories of allergy tests. Do you know which one, that, like specific test
Oh,
that you took?
no, I don't
Okay.
know. I don't know
Okay.
actually. Yeah, yeah. But then also recently, again on allergies, my cousin decided that she wanted to do a detox just recently. So she ordered dandelion leaf and root tea from
What is that?
Amazon. She drank just this happened the other day. She just drank it. And then she sat down and she was like, "Oh, my mouth is burning and my head is burning." And I was like, "Oh, it must be already taking effect, like really
Right.
making light of it." She, next thing you know, her lip started to get inflamed. All here went numb. Her throat started closing up. And I was like, oh my God, you're having an allergic reaction. We literally had to rush to the hospital only for them to say that she was having I'm going to botch this word, anaphylactic shock.
Yes.
Yeah, and she was literally like about to like KO kind of thing. And I said,
Yeah.
I cannot believe. And she's like, she's a 56-year-old woman. She was like, Nadia, I'm a grown woman. How am I now finding out that I've got these kind of allergies? And I said to her, it's
Allergies.
crazy, you know? But again,
Yeah.
and one of the things they did ask her is, do you have any signs of any rashes or anything like that? Because then that becomes a
Mm.
typical way for people to identify
So yeah.
on any allergies and stuff.
Right.
But I think we've
Right.
definitely covered quite a lot of things. I know you've got something, an event coming up called Flaunt Your Flair. Could you tell us a little
Oh
bit
my
about
God,
that, please?
yes. Oh my God, yes. I have been planning Flaunt Your Flair, which is um, a celebration of eczema, but also bringing and bridging the eczema community and sensitive skin community here together in Florida. I just feel like there's not enough real in life person events that happen for
Yeah,
us to come together and have conversations like this. Like
sure.
I've been advocating for 5 years and I've done a lot of panels and Zoom calls and meetings and
Brilliant.
but you know I've only been to one eczema event
Oh,
in real life,
wow.
you
Oh,
know, where it
wow.
was, you know, for eczema and, you know, an eczema awareness event. So like I was saying earlier, this year I feel a bit more clear in my head, in my mental health, in my physical health, in my body. I feel more centered and grounded. And so I just took my time to collect some of my resources and networks that I've made over the years to put together an event. And I have a panel of dietitian Rocky. She's also heavy in the community. She's taught me a lot about nutrition and eczema. And
Sure.
I have Dr. Latanya Benjamin. She's a pediatric dermatologist here in Florida. And my sister, who's a mental health therapist, it's also on the panel. And then we have Brittany, who's going to come in and do some sound healing and breath work before we get into the discussion. And I'm super excited
Ooh.
about it. And then I brought together some brands that I've worked with and connections and products and companies that I prefer and that I've been in communication with. And everyone was so delightful and so supportive. And I highly suggest anyone in the eczema community, if you want to do something of your own, pioneer, lead, organize an event of this sort, I like do it. I made a pitch deck and I started pitching it to people. And of course I was, I got some no's, but I got way more yeses. And
Yeah.
so we're having it next weekend and I'm just super excited.
Oh, that's brilliant. And really kudos to you. I mean, there's a song by an artist in the UK which says "Heavy is the crown." The artist is called
Yes.
Stormzy, and the idea is that we all carry something. We all have something to carry and to shed light on, and then to be the beacon of. And kudos to you for being able to turn your situation into a positive. That's being able to edify and build other people and educate them. I honestly feel like our generation is a generation where because of social media and stuff, we're able to share this information for the next mothers and the next children that are coming up, because we didn't have access to this information when
Not
we were
at
growing up.
all.
Our
Not
parents
at
didn't
all.
have our parents didn't have access to that information as
Yeah.
well. So I think this is really powerful what you're doing, and like really bless you for taking the time and the energy to be able to give back and say, hey guys, like this is what I've learned, this is what I've seen. Let's come together, let's have this conversation so that people are not
Yeah.
dealing with it on their own. And I think this
No.
conversation is really important as well for the Black community too, because again, we're faced with going to the doctors and thinking that's the solution to our problems, but it's not always. So again, these communities allow opportunities for conversations to be had amongst people who actually have a better understanding of what the challenges are, and they're basically
Yeah.
coming together. So I think that's really
Yeah.
powerful. And I really do wish you all the success. If I was in Miami, I would definitely be there.
I know. I know. I
But
do.
I'm sure,
I have a panel of all Black and brown women, and I am
yeah.
super excited about that.
No, that's good. This is what we need. I was actually sitting doing some work today, and I said to myself, if somebody wants to become a doctor today, or somebody wants to become, do anything in healthcare, they should start looking at these stats and start plugging themselves, becoming specialists in the area that there's not enough specialists in. So
Right.
if we know that in the US, for example, the largest population of people who've got eczema is African American. Why not set up a dermatologist center for eczema? You'd be making money from it, because
Right.
you'd become
Right.
specialized, and you'd be able to provide the solutions
Right.
people need. So
That's
yeah.
so true. I actually saw a TikTok today and it was all Black dermatologists
Oh,
and they were
brilliant.
doing the trend like I'm a Black dermatologist. Of course I'm booked for the rest of the year,
Come on
like
now.
because it's a limited amount of them,
Exactly,
and once we,
exactly.
we're it's like finding the therapist, once you
Yes,
find
yes,
your
yes.
tribe, you're like, come on.
That's it. That's it. And
Yeah.
sometimes, like, I do try to explain to my white counterparts, it's not that we're trying to be different
Right.
or anything like that. It's the fact that we just don't have these things that tailor to us. And as much as people like to say, "Oh, I don't see color," my friends see color because 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 if you don't see color, you're going to continue to kill people. You're going to continue to make them feel off. Like I just want to say one last thing. I remember when I was having my son, and one of the doctors had told me, explained something to me. She had said that in the 80s and in the early 90s in the UK, a lot of Black women were undergoing C-sections, right? So they'll get to the hospital, they'll get to 40 weeks, C-section, because they basically weren't presenting as if they were ready to
Right.
have the baby. Then some studies went into it, and they actually realized that Black women carry very differently to white women. I mean, this is the most,
Wow.
yeah, it's very interesting. So what they said is that a Black woman can actually carry until she's 45 weeks. So
Oh,
what they started doing is they started extending the period of of a woman, how long she's going to carry for. And then what they started finding out is that maybe at 42 weeks, then she'll turn. Or even if they saw her today and it looked like she wasn't ready, tomorrow her whole system would just be like, boom, it's ready.
boom,
So there's
ready.
still a lot of learning in the healthcare industry in general about Black people and how our bodies are very different. And there needs to be more attention. And if the
Yeah.
majority of doctors out there are not going to do it, we can only rely on our own kind to do that research
Ourselves.
for us
Yeah.
exactly, and then
But
present it.
the same is with the skin, because a lot of the statistics and research and studies are done on white males.
Ah,
And you would not necessarily treat black skin the same way you would treat fair white
exactly.
skin. So it
Yeah,
makes sense. It
yeah.
makes sense across the board, but I think it's what you said. We still need more research, and we still need more advocacy in our culture, and for people of color living with skin conditions.
Definitely, definitely. And personally, I know this might seem like a little plug from me, but personally, one of the things that I also found quite a big deal is that back home, like in Africa, and even I'm sure in the Caribbean, there is so many natural products that are there that Black people can use. And
Yes.
it's for us, like it would work
Right.
for us. And I think that's one of the things that we also need to be mindful of, again,
That's
is what
very
is
true.
actually good for us. Like it's not
Yeah.
everything that's out there. But Chi, before we end this session, are there any last comments or remarks that you'd like to make for our audience?
I'd just like to say thanks so much for having me. It was a pleasure. It was a pleasure to meet you and speak on your platform, and I'm so grateful.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. Thank you so much, Chi. I hope for everybody that has listened to this today that you've been inspired by this session. As you can see, she's a very
Yes.
beautiful lady. She's been able
Yeah.
to go through it and still be on top and even go to the point of empowering other people. So as I always say, yes, you've got eczema, but eczema does not need to define you. You have to
No.
work on yourself and becoming and feeling good in your skin. Guys, thank you so much.
Mhm.
Until the next session, Chai, thank you so much again for your time.
Thank you.
And guys, until the next podcast, continue to feel good in your skin.